You're listening to The Raz.
Welcome back to The Raz.
Ryan and Adam here.
All right, today we're talking about the myths and realities of alcoholism. Would you like to start with the first one? I'll do the next one.
Absolutely. Myth. Alcohol is predominantly a sedative or depressant drug. Here's the reality. Alcohol's pharmacological effects change with the amount drunk. In small quantities, alcohol is a stimulant. In large quantities, alcohol acts as a sedative. In all amounts, however, alcohol provides a rich and potent source of calories and energy.
What do you think about that?
I completely agree.
Yeah, me too.
I found that when I was in the middle of a relapse and I was kind of, down or lacking energy or something like that, if I just had another shot, I was perked up, I was engaged, and it's like, oh,
Me
I'm
too.
back. Where am I? What happened?
The party would start all over again.
Yeah, I mean, it would actually wake me up, and I started relying on it as a source of energy.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't eating on a binge, I was,
Right.
I'm not taking care of myself. I'm certainly not getting calories from any other sources.
Right.
So I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I drink, it gives me energy. I mean, maybe at first it might kind of, act as a depressant, but then after that, I'm usually up until no joke, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, after a night of debauchery.
It alters my mood in the way that it, like you said, I want to party more. It's like I want to be more engaged. It's like, what's going on now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel more in touch with my surroundings, and it's like, okay, what's next?
Sometimes when I get drunk, I might start at home and then wind up downtown or something. It's happened before, because the party will happen inside you in a way. The party, and you harness that party and take it with you as you wind up downtown in a sticky situation. I mean, I've wound up in some interesting situations just from a night of debauchery alone. So moving along here, we're going to go on to the next myth. Did you have any more else you'd like to elaborate on that?
So, well, no, not on that particular
I'll
one, but
read it.
I think we can both agree it's, it does become like it's a rich and potent source of calories and energy. That's absolutely true.
It's weird. I mean, it's kind of like it can work as a sedative and a stimulant.
At the same time.
At the
Simultaneously,
same time.
yeah.
Yeah, simultaneously. Because, you can pass out. I mean, if you're not partying, you know what I mean? Or if you don't get out and do something with all that energy, then it winds up just kind of putting you to sleep. All right, moving on. The second myth here is alcohol has the same chemical and psychological effect on everyone who drinks. Physiological effect. So alcohol has the same chemical and physiological effect on everyone who drinks. Reality: alcohol, like every other food we take into our bodies, affects different people in different ways.
Dude, what is this book trying to say about us?
Well, I think, you and I both drink, and I do think that it affects us differently in the sense that, I'm able to, like you said on our last segment, kind of pump the brakes, or in one of our last segments. I don't know if that's out yet, but, and for you, you kind of it's no holds barred once you kind of.
Yeah. Well, it flips the switch, and the best way I can think to describe it is that I have an allergy to booze. So there's something that turns the switch on, and then at that point I just know go, 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 and I can't stop. So something happens at a chemical level in my brain that, alcohol does that too. It just, once that switch is flipped, it's on, and I don't know any other speed but full speed ahead.
Yeah. For sure.
So what do we got? Third one.
Well, for me to elaborate on that, it is for me when I, drink, but it affects me in that same sense. Like once I call it the Pringles effect, which basically means once you pop, you just can't stop. Or that's the saying, right? So
Can't have just one.
yeah. Like I don't know. And when I do try to, control my drinking, I don't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
I can't enjoy it when I try to control it. So I only enjoy it when it's out of control.
Yeah.
That's when I enjoy it.
Well, you're not alone.
Yeah.
I'm there with you.
Okay, now we can move on to the next myth.
So we're going to bounce around a little bit here because I think there's some interesting ones and not so interesting ones. So I just want to touch base on this one.
Sure.
Alcohol is harmful and poisonous to the alcoholic. Reality. Alcohol is a normalizing agent. It's interesting. And the best medicine for the pain it creates, giving the alcoholic energy, stimulation, most importantly, maybe relief from the pain of withdrawal. Its harmful and poisonous after effects are most evident when the alcoholic stops drinking.
That's crazy.
So I don't think withdrawal is talked about nearly enough. I mean, you hear about people drinking, you hear about like a hangover. And if a hangover is all I was dealing with, then I would have no problem. It's just the pain of withdrawal is the most intense, excruciating, most uncomfortable thing I have ever been through. And I've been treated for severe withdrawal. Thankfully, it never developed into DTs, delirium tremens, which is the most severe form of alcohol withdrawal. But I have been treated for severe withdrawal in the intensive care unit, and it was just a fucking nightmare. I mean, I had IVs coming out every which way, medicines flowing through me. I felt like complete and utter shit. The world is collapsing.
Fuck, man. Did they at least drug you up? Like, make you a little happy?
I was,
more
man.
comfortable?
They made it as painless as possible, but it's not to say that it's still not a fucking miserable experience.
Do you ever just like, like pretend like you're in more pain to get more Ativan?
I plead the fifth.
Or
I plead the fifth on that. But no, I mean,
it's not like you can get that stuff. Well, I don't know if you could intravenously out on the streets, like Ativan. Ativan.
I don't know about that. But it is heaven when you finally do get it. But, anytime you need medical intervention, it's no fucking cakewalk, man. It sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks being laid up in the hospital. It sucks explaining to them why you're there. But I know for me personally, I would do anything to avoid the pain of withdrawal because the reality was too much to take for me. And when there wasn't that buffer there to protect me from reality, it was just way too overwhelming. It was just... And people don't understand this. I mean, this is what keeps people caught in this vicious cycle is they don't want to be sick. They don't want to be suffering the effects of withdrawal.
Yeah.
I mean, I would get sweaty. I would get shaky. I'd start throwing up. I would start my heart would race. My body temperature would fluctuate. It was just, and I can handle a lot of fucking pain. I mean, I fight, mixed martial arts, Muay Thai. I can handle a lot of fucking pain, but that type of pain, oh God, I just turn into a little bitch.
Do you think some of that is because it becomes mental too? So not only are you battling the physical withdrawals, but like maybe psychologically.
Oh, it's absolutely. Yeah. It's a psychological craving. And not just that, it's just whenever you finally give in and go to the ER or detox, whatever it is, it's embarrassing. It's shameful. It's not only just the physical effects, it's the complete and utter shame that you've brought upon yourself to like just wave your white flag and surrender and just be like, okay, well, I need some fucking help so I don't have a seizure,
Yeah, fuck those people that don't understand though.
Anytime you have to do that, it really fucking sucks, man.
It's shameful, but I would just look at it like, there's so many people out there like that. We're not the only ones.
Thankfully, medical professionals are just that. They're medical professionals. So I would urge anyone considering seeking medical intervention, just be honest with them. Explain to them how much you've been drinking. They can properly supervise you, keep you safe, get you through it as painless as possible. You
don't want to lie to them. If you go in there and you're drunk, you don't want to get medicine that you shouldn't be getting. Mixing those two might kill you.
All right. But in an ER setting, in a hospital setting, they'll be able to properly evaluate you, come up with a course of action, come up with a treatment plan, keep you safe, and get you out of the red zone, get you into detox, do something to, so you can medically come off of it, like I said, as painless as possible. Do not do this at home, folks. Do not stop cold turkey if you've been drinking heavily. The last thing you want to be doing is going through a seizure, going through some kind of cardiac event or stroke or something like that. So you think you have a problem, you think you've been overdoing it, just go to detox. Just go to the ER, get evaluated at the very least, talk to your doctor, and check it out medically, see what they have to say.
Are you ready for the next myth here?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, next myth here. Actually, I want to do these next two because I think they're really, really good, especially the second one. But the first one here, it says myth: addiction to alcohol is often psychological. Bullshit. Reality: addiction to alcohol is primarily physiological. Alcoholics become addicted because their bodies are physiologically incapable of processing alcohol normally. So what do you think about that?
I'd have to agree. And I think this just reiterates my earlier point that I always say I have an allergy to booze. I process it in such a way that is just different.
Like you're allergic to it.
Yeah, it just...
and it's true.
It does.
Like the way your body ends up processing it is partly the reason as to what ends up being...
I suppose
happening, the aftermath.
I suppose I would also expand on this. Yes, of course it is psychological, but it's one of the, it's to a degree, but again, it's at a certain point when it becomes a brain disorder and your body physically needs it, craves it, and withdraws from it. It's absolutely physical.
And I think don't have to do this, like you don't have to be dependent on it to actually go through this, believe it or not.
Right.
You can just be like a binge drinker and let's say, like for me, my hangovers are 10 times worse. Well, that's because now there's withdrawal associated with that.
Right.
And I may not drink every day, but it's the same process. So every time I drink, essentially I do go through a withdrawal just from one night of drinking. Mm-hmm. It's a hangover on top of a withdrawal.
That's why I don't stop once I...
Right. Yeah. No,
to be completely honest, that's why I don't stop, is just to avoid... I'm so terrified of that alcoholic hangover, they call it. It's just like, dude, I would rather just roll the dice and keep going because I don't want to face the fucking pain.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, that I basically said what I had to about it, honestly. Okay. Go ahead and you could read the next one if you want.
So let's see.
This was a good one. I like this one because this is a very.
Is this the next one underneath it?
Yeah.
Okay. So myth: people become alcoholics because they have psychological or emotional problems, which they try to relieve by drinking. This is reality. Alcoholics have the same psychological and emotional problems as everyone else. Shocker! Before they start drinking. These problems are aggravated, however, by their addiction to alcohol. Alcoholism undermines and weakens the alcoholic's ability to cope with the normal problems of living. Furthermore, the alcoholic's emotions become inflamed, both when he drinks excessively and when he stops drinking. Thus, when he is drinking and when he is abstinent, he will feel angry, fearful, and depressed in exaggerated degrees. God, is this my autobiography?
Well, so basically it's understanding the vicious cycle here, like we kind of drink, we use it as an excuse to cope with depression and anxiety, right? But the reality is that it actually just exacerbates depression and anxiety over time. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, quite the vicious cycle. If you think about it, like you almost have to stay sober for long enough to heal from that in order to really be able to see the difference and to know whether or not you're actually suffering from depression or anxiety, because they say too in recovery, it could take up to like 1-2 years.
Oh,
even,
yeah.
To actually, fully recover, meaning, your body actually being normalized and feeling like a normal human being again.
Yeah.
So that's just interesting because I think that's part of the addiction trap, like the biggest key component to it, as a matter of fact, because it's like, you know, the alcohol is almost what created the depression and anxiety to the degree that it's at, and it's never going to get better until we really give ourselves a chance to heal, so we can actually see a difference, you know. So I mean, a lot of people say after a year or two of sobriety, after causing quite a bit of damage, is when they start to really feel the difference.
I would have to agree with that. I know that for me, I would turn to alcohol because the pain of living was just too much. I was overwhelmed with depression, with grief from my mom's death, with anxiety, with, you know, just a whole host of like psychiatric issues. And I would just drink to essentially suppress that, thus causing even more, you know, sort of damage in the long run, because then I would get into a relapse, I would get into a binge, it would become a vicious cycle, and then it would just perpetuate the problems that I already had, you know, not to mention things like just the chaos it would create in my own life, job loss, interpersonal relationship problems, tension with family members, judgment from friends, withdrawal from society. You know,
I can relate for sure.
basically turning my back on like basic responsibilities. You know, I would just be like, you know what, fuck it. I can't do this anymore. So I'm checking out for a week, 2 weeks, you know, and I'd go on a bender and just completely neglect my phone, neglect my life, neglect my friends. And it was chaotic.
Total isolation, huh?
Complete isolation. It got to a point where, like you mentioned earlier, you would like kind of get into a mood to like go downtown. I wouldn't do that shit anymore. I would seriously just drink.
Do you remember those days?
I do in my 20s.
Now that I had like
in my 20s, I would
beers.
like, it was that for me. But now it's just like I get on one and I just want to isolate. I want to be at home.
That's probably the case for
Because
me,
I think I
honestly.
kind of consciously am aware, like I'm way too sloppy and fucked up to be in public. So I don't want anyone to see me. I don't want any, you know, so I just sit there and just self-destruct
right.
at home.
Yeah, I do the same thing. You know, honestly, that's probably more or less what my experience has been lately. You know what I mean? That same sensation of isolating yourself when you're on one. I might be thinking of the past and comparing that to like, seriously, I might be. Sometimes I, you know, still think that certain things are true when they're not anymore, because I've always held on to it, and that's always been the case. It's kind of like when you're telling yourself like the social, like, are we really more social anymore when we drink? How we used to use it as like a social lubricant in order to be, or in order to socialize with other people.
We talked about romanticizing it in the prior segment, and I think that's still what I do. I want to make it the way it was when I was 21, 22. And it was fun, and it was lighthearted, and I associate drinking with like fun with you guys, you know, and playing music and like that lifestyle. And it's just not that way anymore.
Right.
I mean, I get on one and I just completely go to it.
Is it possible that it never was like that though?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like maybe it was an illusion because of the euphoria.
Might have just been a
facade.
What I mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know either.
Because I know for me, like I mentioned, I started stacking the pins, the dominoes against me in my mid-20s. So I know I was already setting myself up to fail back then.
Right.
I had no idea it would become the monster in my life that it eventually became. But I can look back now and be like, fuck, I really was even kind of out of control then.
Because we don't have all the answers here. If we did, I know I wouldn't drink at all. But I admit that I struggle, and that's okay, you know. Like I don't necessarily dwell on every relapse as a bad thing. I just kind of go, okay, I relapsed, and try to just pick up where I left off and move on. Wouldn't you agree? Because if you sit there and you focus on the negative, it just, like, if you focus on the problem increases. If you focus on the solution happens, you know. So
I found I started getting more results when I turned my effort toward, can I recognize problems in my own behavior, in my own psyche, as opposed to sitting there and just stewing over the last relapse,
Right.
feeling like shit and feeling sorry for myself, like, oh, woe is me type of shit.
Yeah.
It was more like, okay, what can I do in the future to prevent this from happening again? What can I change this time? You know,
Switch from beer to hard liquor, or vice versa. I meant. No, but those are some of the things that I'm sure we've all gone through.
Oh, I've tried to. I've even tried to make adjustments there. It's like I'm
gonna switch to liqueurs.
justify it, in some way. Like, oh well,
No beer, hard liquor for this guy.
just 3 shots this time and a beer instead of, 3 beers and a shot. Well, whatever. I don't know. Like it was weird.
Well, so before we get lose too much track of time, kind of want to do the next myth, if that's all right. So the next myth here is all sorts of social problems, marriage problems, a death in the family, job stress may cause alcoholism. Reality. As with psychological and emotional problems, alcoholics experience all the social pressures everyone else does, but their ability to cope is undermined by the disease, and the problems get worse. So it's just kind
This
of
one gets kind of tricky.
The last one there, that basically continuing to drink just makes all your mental health issues more obvious.
Yeah. This one gets kind of tricky because the wording is a little weird, but I think life trauma of any kind can awaken that monster. A death in the family. It could be a breakup. It could be, a job loss of something. I don't know, however, though, how that corresponds specifically to drinking habits.
Well, I think like for I just think like we were born this way, and it's a thinking disorder, so we were going to become alcoholics no matter what. It was just a matter of time of finding alcohol, or maybe it would be something else. And so all those external stimuli end up just kind of reinforcing the drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, all these things every day people go through, and they don't drink through it, or maybe they do drink through it, but again, they don't have that disease, so they're not going to become alcoholics afterwards. Or maybe they weren't alcoholics to begin with, they're just problem drinking.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept because I know even drinking habits can be broken down into, like you mentioned, like problem drinking, maintenance drinking, binge drinking. And I always try to analyze, like, was all this circumstantial? Was all this just a product of external stimuli? Or was this trauma? Was this, how did but I don't try to spend really too much time in it because I just get more and more lost. But,
Yeah.
I do think, however, like I said, I think life trauma can awaken that beast. In fact, I tend to kind of, I'm naturally defiant against authority. So I think I told you one time, I actually got in trouble one time because I attended an AA meeting, and I didn't want to use the word alcoholic. I actually, when everyone's doing their intro and saying, hey, I'm Bob, I'm an alcoholic. Hey, I'm Steve, I'm an alcoholic. When it got to me, I was like, hey, I'm Adam, and I let alcohol get in the way, just because I think that word, even for me, is kind of defeatist in a way, and I tend to rail against that. I just don't.
Well, what is your idea of an alcoholic? Like,
Well,
when you hear the word alcoholic, what goes through your
this is
mind?
this is kind of where I clash a little bit, maybe with the some of the clinical stuff. Is even they can't really say medically define what an alcoholic is, and even if they try to, it's like, okay, well, do you define it by problem drinking? Because if you do, you just described, guess what, like 80% of the college population, 70% of the general populace. So it's like, what does that even mean? Does alcoholic mean? So this is getting into something just my personal shit, but I don't like that word. It's like the word God. It's a negative connotation. I don't like to use it, and it just, I don't look at this chapter of my life as my life. I don't define my issue with the drinking.
See, I don't look at the word alcohol as alcoholic or alcoholism in that manner. It's just a word, and honestly, it just describes the behavior that I have. So I'm not alcoholic dependent. I don't drink every day. I'm not. Well, I'm not alcoholic dependent. I guess or alcohol dependent is what I'm trying to say. Fuck, I forgot what I was saying.
Well, yeah, like I said, call me
Cut that
meticulous over definitions and stuff, but I just don't. I tend to rail against that word. First of all, like I said, because medically they can't really tell me what that is. Secondly, it's I don't feel.
Just call it whatever you want. Then
I feel empowered by my choices. Really, I don't feel like I, need to surrender or these kinds of like sort of powerless things. I just, for me, it's empowerment by choice. It's like, okay, I can have a fuck it moment and be like, okay, I choose to go do something else. I choose to go to the gym. I choose to go do fitness or climb a mountain and not choose the alcohol. Like maybe that's my higher power. They're always asking me. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Maybe my higher power is choice, because I always got irritated with that idea of like, okay, well, the dogmatic stuff really turned me off, and it was like more like, okay, well, maybe that's my higher power. Who knows? The power of choice. I choose not to drink. So.
Or I choose to drink.
Or it's an option that's absolutely on the table.
My uncle that's got 25 years, he's like, you want to know the secret? You either drink or you don't. It's that simple. And, I'm like starting to understand that now, because back then I was like, yeah, right. It's not that simple at all. But as I get older, again, that's manifested over time. I'm just starting to see more truth to that, because within my relapses, trying to sit there and can make it really
philosophical.
And like so hard to figure out, like there's something that I'm missing.
Right.
Yeah. I just wanted to drink. And that's all it came down to. I knew what the consequences were going to be. I knew that, that anything could happen.
Yeah.
I still continue to do it. So that's what I think, man. I mean, at this point,
just an awareness level.
Yeah, it's always an option, and like there's a different form of that is the way you talk about it, like how a counselor had said. It's always an option. Yeah. There's that power of choice.
That was the one like aha moment in my own recovery, was I started seeing a new psychologist and the way that it was explained to me, because so much of recovery that I had experienced up until that point was just a big fucking list of things that I couldn't do. I can't do this anymore. I couldn't engage in these behaviors, couldn't hang out at these spots, couldn't put myself in these situations. So for me, again, a person who's naturally defiant is going to look at that and go, well, fuck you. That's like going to be the first thing I go do. But the way, this person explained it to me was, no, that's incorrect. The alcohol is absolutely an option that's on the table. It's right in front of you, so you can have your fuck it moment, have your depression, have your moment where you just say, God damn it. Like, I can't figure this out. Like, fuck. And it's just really what you do with that moment. Like I can choose to go do something else. I can choose to go to a meeting, call you, reach out, do something else other than the alcohol. And it was within that I was like, oh shit, like that's absolutely right. So once can't became I choose, I felt a million times better.
Yeah, that's great.
It was like empowerment. It was like, okay, now absolutely. I get it. Yeah. Now I get it.
Yeah, that's that's good stuff. I like that. All right, so I guess I'd like to, because we still have some more myths and realities. Maybe we can, why don't, at this point, we'll kind of go through them, and if we have anything that pops up that we want to, just go ahead and interject. Next one is myth. When the alcoholic is drinking, he reveals his true personality. Oh, this is a good one, because I think a lot of relationships I've been in with girls, this is one that pertains to them. They think that, I've heard this before, like I dated a girl and you were saying this last night, and that must be what you really truly
you don't remember saying it.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's the truth. I don't even remember saying it. I'm like, I said what? But anyway, okay, so myth.
What? My name is Tom.
When the alcoholic is drinking, he reveals his true personality. Reality. Alcohol's effects on the brain causes severe psychological and emotional distortions of the normal personality. Sobriety reveals the alcoholic's true personality.
So on this one, I tend to agree. I guess in my earlier years with the drinking, that actually was somewhat true, but anymore I would just turn into a selfish prick when I would, when I'm in a relapse. All I care about is just getting to that next lily pad. So for me, that is myth. I mean, if anything, I just become manipulative and just spiteful and just selfish and belligerent, and I just want that next fucking drink. How am I gonna get it? What method am I gonna use? What's the plan?
Okay, we'll walk to the liquor store right now. It's right over here, and I got some money.
Oh God.
See,
choose not to do that.
It's funny how
right?
It's always an option, and it's just so in your face. It's so socially acceptable, and it's like way worse than marijuana.
Yeah.
Okay, so going right along into the next myth. I'm sorry, you didn't have anything else to say on that?
No.
Okay, good. I just didn't want to fucking...
And for the most part, just disagree.
Myth. The fact that alcoholics often continue to be depressed, anxious, irritable, and unhappy after they stop drinking is evidence that their disease is caused by psychological problems. God. Reality. Alcoholics who continue to be depressed, anxious, irritable, and unhappy after they stop drinking are actually suffering from a phenomenon called the protracted withdrawal syndrome. The physical damage caused by years of excessive drinking has not been completely reversed. They are, in fact, still sick in need of more effective therapy.
So I could go on and on and on for days, probably, about withdrawal. So yes, this protracted withdrawal syndrome, it's a real phenomenon. I mean, even when you get beyond the acute stuff and you're out of the, quote, red zone for stuff like seizures and stuff, I still found that I had, like, issues like brain fog.
Yeah.
I would have sleep issues, insomnia. Yeah. I'd have problems with my speech. In general, I just felt lethargic, slowed down, depressed. The depression would really that was really an issue for me.
Yeah, that's
it would set in and just stay and not go anywhere. It was like, okay, I'm done with the drinking. I'm done with the binge. Can this just stop?
Yeah.
And the anxiety would sort of continue. It's always been nagging for me. It was like nagging anxiety punctuated by terrible panic attacks. So, I've definitely...
See, now, I don't know if they're talking about, or when they refer to the protracted withdrawal syndrome, if they're referring to post withdrawal? Like post-acute. Post-acute withdrawal syndrome. So, I'm wondering if this is, when they say the protracted withdrawal syndrome, if they're referring to even after the acute or the post-acute. So,
well, I think most importantly,
or if it's the same thing.
Most importantly, the whole thing, this myth, the reason we're pissed off and angry and irritable and depressed is because the party's over. When you withdraw something that someone's body has become dependent on, of course they're going to feel like shit. Of course they're going to be depressed. Of course they're going to be anxious. Of course they're going to have issues like insomnia and digestive issues and
all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of shit going on. So they're unhappy that they don't have their substance of choice anymore. They're, in effect, like this thing said, sick. They are sick.
And then they don't have their health to overcome that.
Right. So I think, that whole phenomenon, the acute withdrawal, obviously the most dangerous time frame. And then the protracted withdrawal, they said, could continue for what? That could be a year, 2 years,
All right. Myth number 12. No, I don't even know what myth we're on. We weren't numbered.
27.
265. This is an hour-long segment. So if people would only drink responsibly, they would not become alcoholics. Reality. Many responsible drinkers become alcoholics. Then Because it is the nature of the disease, not the person, they begin to drink irresponsibly. So, yeah, I can that's me. But quickly I would like to go to these last ones. So we got a few more. Myth: an alcoholic has to want help to be helped. Reality: most drinking alcoholics do not want to be helped. They are sick, unable to think rationally, and incapable of giving up alcohol by themselves. Oh, that sounds like somebody we know. Most recovered alcoholics were forced into treatment against their will. Self-motivation usually occurs during treatment, not before. So, when I went to rehab, it definitely opens the door and kind of paved the way to my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had not made the decision to do that, I wouldn't at least if anything, the only thing I got out of rehab was the open mind for recovery.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think for me, I kind of pitter-patter back and forth with this because for me, although I think it's a unique circumstance, I usually know when I'm sick enough. Well, I'd say 95% of the time, I know when the party's over. I know when it's time to wave the white flag and get to the ER. So I don't know. I mean, if this is something that applies, like to maintenance drinking, but for me, I kind of know physically, like I can feel it. It's time to stop, put the fucking bottle down, get to the emergency room, get to
ICU.
detox. I know it's time. So
Yeah.
generally speaking, I will put up a fight before then, though, for sure.
Sure.
I mean, I will be like, no, I don't want to go. I'm not ready to go. One more day, 2 more days, like that kind of mentality.
Ooh, yeah.
Like it's going to be that much more exciting, like to,
Yeah.
whatever the fuck.
That's crazy. All right. So next myth. Sorry. Some alcoholics can learn to drink normally and can continue to drink with no ill effects as long as they limit the amount. Reality: alcoholics can never safely return to drinking because drinking in any amount will sooner or later reactivate their addiction. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, for anybody that is a true alcoholic, I don't think there is, unless science can achieve through like medication or pharmaceuticals, which supposedly, taking like the Vivitrol and the now
Naltrexone.
Yeah, supposedly that's the only thing out there that would maybe do that, but without some sort of scientific pharmaceutical drug, you're not going to be able to moderate your drinking if you're a true alcoholic. There's no moderation. It's and for me that's true. Like I can't tell you time and time again how many times I struggle with just trying to deceive myself that I can drink a few just guarantees that I'm gonna get completely and utterly shit-faced.
It's a slippery slope for me because you hear about these things now, like what is that new recovery program, the harm reduction, like the thing where they have a formula for
I've never heard
moderate.
of
it. I know nothing about it. I just heard about it through friends.
We'll have to
word of mouth.
look into that. Maybe do a
we
separate
look into
thing
it
on that.
because I don't know what their success rates is. I don't know if there's any science behind it, but the whole idea, I guess, is to teach someone who is a problem drinker to reduce their amount to the point where they can drink.
Well, a problem drinker and alcoholic.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to do that for alcoholics, then if you think about it, anybody who knows the disease knows you can't turn a normal drinker into out of an alcoholic. There's just no way. So what a genius scam is all I gotta say. Fuck. Talk about like capitalizing on sick people. Like, oh man, let's just repackage this, and yeah, let's take a look at. I'd like to take a look at their success rates, but in any event, we need to. We got a time
We'll have to
limit
check
here.
that out.
Yeah, we'll check
Get
that out.
back.
Maybe do something on that. All right, next myth is psychotherapy can help many alcoholics achieve sobriety through self-understanding. Reality: psychotherapy diverts attention from the physical causes of the disease, compounds the alcoholic's guilt and shame, and aggravates rather than alleviates his problems. So I don't really know much about psychotherapy and alcoholism, so I think maybe we should just go to the next one. Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you have something you want
Well,
to elaborate on that.
I don't necessarily agree. I think psychotherapy can be supplemental to a core treatment plan. In fact, I know that it's helped me individually. I think oftentimes the meetings are great, AA, whatever it is, your program of choice, good for you.
Is that what they mean by psychotherapy?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
any, psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors. So I think the meetings are great, but I think more often than not, people need individual level care. They
Right.
need counseling. They need to, something is going on psychologically that they need to, I think, chat about. Aggravating circumstances, life trauma,
Sure.
whatever it is.
I wonder what they
I'm on the-
specifically.
I'm on the
yeah,
fence
I'm on
with
the fence
that,
with that
I
too.
guess, because I think
Yeah.
that talk therapy, it can be beneficial. It can be helpful.
But I could also see like it depends on what type of curriculum they're getting. If they're getting stuff that is going to make them feel
some of this
guilt and
verbiage is
shame.
kind of confusing.
Sure,
I guess,
yeah.
But yeah, let's move on.
all right. Myth: craving for alcohol, God, can be offset by eating high sugar foods. Reality: foods with a high sugar content will increase the alcoholic's depression, irritability, and tension, and intensify his desire for a drink to relieve these symptoms. That's interesting. So basically, because like I've heard that saying, like, oh, if you're craving alcohol, eat a piece of chocolate, right? So this is basically.
I guess I'm on the fence with this one too,
Yeah, me
because
too.
I've personally had intense cravings, and not to say that it's the most healthy thing in the world, but I had a few times where it was like, okay, when it comes down to it, either drink or I went and got junk food
Yeah.
instead, and maybe I was just kind of sulking. I ate like shit, and I actually was able to get through some cravings
Yeah.
like that.
So
I don't,
yeah, I'm on the fence.
I don't know how I feel about that.
because I've heard the same thing.
A nice cup of coffee, man, with some caffeine, get that body buzz going on. That's what I'm saying.
Some fake sugar. All right. And then we're almost done here. So
Couple
myth:
more.
if alcoholics eat 3 balanced meals a day, their nutritional problems will eventually correct themselves. Reality: alcoholics' nutritional needs are only partially met by a balanced diet. They also need vitamin and mineral supplements to correct any deficiencies and to maintain nutritional balances. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, so this is kind of my arena with the supplements and the health stuff. This is absolutely right. So you obviously need a balanced diet. You need to eat clean, lots of veggies, lots of clean grains, clean meats. But you also need to be supplementing, especially someone in recovery. Some goodies, miscellaneous goodies for your liver. Milk thistle, silymarin. You can pick these up at any health food store. Taurine, it's an amino acid. It's really, really good to kind of rejuvenate your nervous system. Let's see,
I like
what else do we
teas.
got?
Teas are good.
Teas, herbal
Yeah.
teas. Make sure they're organic. Make sure you check out things like dandelion, burdock, ginger, organic honey. Green tea has great detoxifying power. Licorice root, rooibos. Let's see
I drink
what-
teas on a regular basis over soda. It's just a no-brainer there.
You also need to be taking a good multivitamin, good high quality multivitamin with plenty of folate and plenty of thiamine. That B1 is critically important, so make sure you guys get that.
High potency.
High potency stuff, health food store. Spend the money to get the good shit. Don't go to Walmart or some stupid shit like that.
You'd
Get
probably
good
spend
shit.
the money at a bar or on your drug of choice.
Make sure you stay hydrated. Get plenty of rest. Anyone in recovery, make sure you're treating your body good. Be kind to it. Let's
right.
move on to this last one.
So this last one is myth. Tranquilizers and sedatives are sometimes useful in treating alcoholics. Well, before we go on to the reality, if you ask an alcoholic, of course he's going to say those help you. Because they do, and they're great. They help alleviate symptoms of withdrawal. But the reality is tranquilizers and sedatives are useful only during the acute withdrawal period. Beyond that, these substitute drugs are destructive and, in many cases, deadly for alcoholics. I'm going to have to agree with this one, you know.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate these the tranquilizers, primarily the benzos. Although if you're severe, like in bad shape, they might give you a barbiturate like Pheno or something like that. But these drugs are critically important during the acute withdrawal phase. So if you wind up going to the ER or detox, chances are you're going to get some form of a benzodiazepine. They use things like Ativan, Transien, Klonopin. What are the other ones? Librium is good through the acute phase.
Librium.
I would also say the way that I'm on the fence with this one is I think if someone's managing depression, I think medication can be useful. Now, obviously, you need to chat with your doctor and come up with a medication schedule, dosing, etc. But I think that can be useful in addition to talk therapy and fitness and all that shit. You need to stay healthy. So if medicine can help you kind of get over that hump and you can use it as a tool to deal with whatever you're dealing with, I think it's absolutely necessary. So
any medication a doctor prescribes you, though, do your own research. It's just always good to know what you're getting into, because doctors, you know, they do have a tendency to, not that they're doing this on purpose, but just misdiagnose things by not taking a close look. If you think about it, you only have their attention for so long when you go see them, like what, 15, 20 minutes?
You're going to want to do your homework is what he's trying to say. So educate yourself on the medications they're giving you. And again, nothing can really take the place of just a good, clean, high nutrition diet, lots of rest, exercise, take care of yourselves.
All right, and so today's show, Under the Myths and Realities, was brought to you by the book Under the Influence.
So, Under the Influence, A Guide to the Myths and Realities of Alcoholism by Dr. James Millam and Dr. Catherine Ketchum. If you guys have not checked this book out, make sure you do. Check it out online, Amazon. It's fantastic. It's got great reviews, lots of good information. Really dives into some specifics on behaviors, on the psychology of it, how it manifests, different types of drinking. So make sure you guys check it out. It's a great, great book. We want to thank you for joining us today. This is The Raz. I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
We'll check in with you next time.
Later.